Hello there, I am here with the first half of my March wrap up. I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the smallest half-month wrap up I've ever done. I've only read 2 physical books, however they are quite thick and one of them has very little writing. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I've been watching MasterChef and it's been taking up a lot of my time. But there we go, I'm still fine with it, and I'm actually going to pad this review out a bit by talking about one of the audiobooks I also listened to this half of the month. So let's get straight into it with the first physical book I read, which was The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman. This was around a lot on BookTube for quite a few years ago now, and I picked it up back then in a charity shop and just never got around to reading it. It was never one that was really on my radar, so this month I thought I'd actually pick it up. Disclaimer that this isn't really the kind of book that I would typically read, but it was kind of what I needed at the time because I've been reading quite a few heavy books and I kind of wanted something that's just light and easy to read, and this is that. Basically this follows a couple who live, the man of the couple, I think he's called Tom, I might be wrong, yes, Tom and his wife Izzy. So Tom is a lighthouse keeper and they live on this deserted island basically with a lighthouse that he is tending, and they keep trying for a baby but Izzy keeps miscarrying, and then one day a baby and a dead body wash up on their little island and they decide to take the baby in and things go from there. It was fine. It almost reminded me a bit of a Jodi Piccolo, is that how you say her name? One of her novels, because it kind of turns into a bit of a family drama, courtroom saga kind of thing. It tries to look at this idea of right and wrong and what's right and wrong and who's right and wrong, but it kind of, to me, it was quite straight cut who was wrong and who wasn't, and I think the person who wasn't wrong was kind of demonised a bit for the sake of the plot, which wasn't strictly fair. And also I just felt like towards the end the characters really irritated me, pretty much all of them. Their actions irritated me, I thought their decisions weren't very realistic, etc. But it was fine. It was an easy read, as I say. It didn't require any brain power on my part. It's not the kind of thing that I would usually read and I can't necessarily recommend it in that sense, but it was fine. It served a purpose for me. Then I moved on to a book that I've been very excited about for a very long time, which was The Invention of Angela Carter by Edmund Gordon. This won the Somerset Maugham Prize last year or the year before, and I really wanted to get to it because I adore Angela Carter. This, however, is the thick book that took me a very long time because look how tiny the writing is. I have to say it's not often that I read a biography, and it is very, it is a biography. It's quite heavy and it literally looks at the entirety of Angela Carter's life. I did find it quite slow because we start, as a lot of biographies do, with Angela's grandma and then her mum, and then Angela comes into the scene. Obviously things got going a lot more once Angela was alive, but it was still quite heavy. I think if you're not a fan of Angela Carter you probably wouldn't enjoy this. However, I really did enjoy it. I have to say that I didn't really learn anything new because I recently watched a programme on the BBC with Angela Carter called Angela Carter of Wolves and Women, I think it's called, and that pretty much covers everything in an hour-long programme. This was still really good. It's a very extensive look at Angela's life using letters and interviews with people that she was involved with. She's an interesting character because I think she's not always been the nicest person, but also she just captures my heart. I feel like we're kindred spirits and I just adore her. The end of this book follows the end of her life and it gets quite emotional towards that section, I do warn you. But as I say, I enjoyed it. It took me a long time to get through, but I'm glad that I stuck with it. And then the audiobook that I'm going to talk to you about is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. A lot of people have read this already. I'm quite late on the Celeste Ng bandwagon. For some reason I thought this was YA, but actually having listened to it, I don't think that it sounded like it was, and also I can't see any evidence online that it is YA. I think the thing is that because it follows the struggles, I suppose, of a teenager predominantly, I think a lot of people who read YA read this, but that put me off for a very long time, and when I saw this on Daily Deals on Audible I picked it up. It was actually really good. I enjoyed it. It's basically a look at this family. They are a half Asian family And the daughter, Lydia, when it starts, she's gone missing, but we learn straight away that she has died. I think the first line is, Lydia is dead, but no one knows that yet. And first we follow them trying to find her and their struggle and panic that she's gone, and then we follow the fallout, obviously, of their grief once her body is found. And we kind of touch on what happened. We look at what happened when Lydia was alive as well, but the main focus of the book isn't really on how she died, and there's not really a conclusive answer to that, although it pretty much comes together that you can guess how she died. It was really good in the fact that it looks, as I say, at this family, and it looks at each member of the family and how they deal with their grief in different ways. It also looks very much at the miscommunications between families, especially between teenage children and their parents, and the way that the parents just don't really know the inner world of their teenagers, and in most cases don't try to know the inner world of their teenagers. For example, Lydia's mum always wanted to become a doctor, to the point where she actually ran away and left her family so that she could study, but it didn't happen for her. She fell pregnant again, and so she always kind of put that dream on Lydia, and she was always pushing the interesting one about family dynamics, and it's really well written. I would say, I can't remember who narrated it, I'll put it down below because I didn't prepare properly. However, I didn't love the narration. I thought it was very, I almost felt like I'd listened to this narrator before. It reminded me of the narrator who was on The Girls, but it wasn't the same person, I did check. But she was every word was very highlighted, and it was very dramatic, which was fine because it did make you really appreciate the beautiful language. But after about 2 hours of listening to it, I was just like, my God. And I actually don't do this very often, but I sped it up, and I found that having put it on like 1.25, it sounded like normal narration, like normal person speaking, rather than everything like this. So that's a point worth noting if you're going to listen to it on Audible. The only downside I would have to say about this book, and it kind of did drag it down quite a bit for me, is that the ending was very sudden. It didn't really, I don't feel like it came to a conclusive or satisfying ending. Now that wouldn't normally bother me, and I think it probably was more evident because I was listening to it, and obviously I couldn't see that I was coming to the end, and then all of a sudden it was the voice saying, "You have been listening to," and I was like, oh, okay. So there is no conclusive ending, which to some extent I think is the nature of the book, because it is just a family looking at their family, and also obviously grief is ongoing. It's not going to come to a neat conclusion, but I think it could have been a little more tied up than it was. I feel like there were a lot of unanswered questions, which again is kind of reflective of how the family were feeling, but I think for the sake of a complete book, there could have been more of a kind of wrapped up thing. You know, she didn't have to do a happily ever after, that wouldn't have suited the book at all, but I feel like, yeah, there just could have been a little bit more of something. As it was, it felt like it kind of could have ended anywhere, because that's how it kind of ended. Yeah, it didn't satisfy me at the end, but that said, I'm definitely going to be picking up Little Fires Everywhere at some stage. Please let me know down below if you've read or listened to any of these books, and I will see you next time. Bye!